What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, taking a look at two absolutely absurd knives from Ryder, and I do mean that in the best way possible. Now, these are commemorative knives commemorating the 30th anniversary of Ryder, founded in 1994. And if you don't follow SMKW all that closely here on YouTube or even on Instagram, these ones would be pretty easy to miss, which is a big reason why I wanted to put this video out so quickly. These just landed to me. The other reason I wanted to get them out quickly is if you take a look at those bolsters, these are serialized, meaning that they're going to be somewhat limited. I don't know how many of each model were made. I don't think they've said yet, but either way, at the time I'm uploading this video at least, both models are still available. So I'll make sure to link to them in the description of this video. You can pick these up for $30 each, which is a really, really great value. Now, I haven't mentioned why they're absurd. On the surface, just looking at them in this view, looks like a standard trapper up top, standard Stockman on the bottom, and that is partially true, except these ones have been scaled up to some absurd proportions. I'm talking 8 inches in the closed position, so absolutely massive for a slip joint, pretty large for really any knife. So let's get them picked up for the first time here so you can get a sense of scale in my hand and see just how massive these knives are. Some really nice detail work on those springs as well, which we'll look at a little bit closely later, but really, really large. I realize the stranger's hand though isn't that great a sense of scale, so also grabbed a standard Ryder trapper to compare it to, and you can see over double the size of this one, and that applies to the thickness as well. This is over an inch thick and really, really large handles. In fact, I can get 2 hands around this with room to spare, and so two-handed handle on a slip joint is definitely absurd in my opinion. Now, one thing that I thought was interesting is these are mostly standard configurations for a trapper. So we've got our clip point and our spay blades, 2-bladed slip joint here, and then our Stockman, of course, is 3-bladed. But what was surprising to me is that this is actually a little bit lighter than our trapper. So our 3-bladed Stockman weighs 18.9 ounces, while our 2-bladed trapper weighs 19.75 ounces, so nearly a full ounce heavier. I attribute a lot of that to just extra material. You can see the handle's bigger on the trapper. Our blades are also both longer than the longest blade on the Stockman, so just a little bit more material there, leading to a heavier overall knife. Both feel very impressive in hand. These are more like display knives, conversation pieces than actual usable knives, but both are usable knives with usable edges, and even a little bit intimidating in case of the trapper, which has a lot stronger springs on it, so closing that one can be pretty intimidating. Before we get too far on this though, I did want to show off the box, something I don't usually show in videos because they can be pretty boring, but this one's a little bit more interesting. I'm only going to show one of the two because it has this graphic for the 30th anniversary, as well as some additional logos and shields that they've used over the years. If we take a look at the sides of the boxes, you can see these ones still have the old Ryder with the I instead of the Y in the spelling. Same thing on the back, some of the older shields out there. And so I thought that was just kind of a cool, nice touch, so I figured I would show that off as well. But let's get back to the knives. Now, in terms of fit and finish, these are both very well done. Both have some minor fit and finish issues, but nothing I'm ultra concerned about, especially the knives that aren't really meant to be users. Although a part of me does want to have a custom slip made for one of these and carry it around for a little bit just for the heck of it. But at nearly 20 ounces on both of them, definitely seems like it's going to be pretty heavy and inconvenient to actually carry. But looking at the fit and finish again, we have some nickel silver bolsters, pinched and fluted. You can see they are serialized, so I have 127 here, which is something that'll come up again in a moment here. This commemorative 30th anniversary shield nicely set in there. Pack of wood on the handles for both of them. So the Stockman has black pack of wood. Our trapper has that blue pack of wood. The pins are all completely flush. It's great detail work on both of those. And if there is minor gapping or anything, that detail work on the springs definitely hides it, but nothing really notable in my opinion there. One thing I guess worth noting on the Stockman is that it doesn't quite line up the file work, where on the trapper it really does. And I attribute a part of that to that both of these have the blade in the same configuration, where the other one has to accommodate 2 blades on one of the springs, and so it starts a little bit off skew. But you can see the file work on this one lines up very, very nicely with each other, where on the Stockman it's a little bit off skew. But either way, I think both kind of iterations look very cool. Same kind of thing on the pal side here, nothing in terms of serialization or anything like that, but all of the fit and finish is identical. Now the only minor fit and finish issue on this one is if we take a look at those blades, they are sandwiched on top of each other, unfortunately, which does create a little bit of rub. So we can open our clip point and we can see that a little bit with that mark on our sheep's foot blade. Hopefully that's coming through right here below my finger. And same thing on the back of that clip point blade. So right now it's pretty surface level. You can easily kind of wipe it away, but over time you can even kind of hear it when I close it. Over time, that's definitely going to create a real rub mark that won't be able to be wiped away. Now, you might think that's just on my model. I have serial number, again, 127. In the promotional videos that they posted of these, they had serial number, I believe, 78, and I saw the same markings. And so if it's not widespread, I still wouldn't be surprised to see it on a lot of these. You may luck out and get one without that rub, but at least the two examples that I've seen, my own and the one in that video, did have that same marking, meaning that it does have that rub. Now, pull on this one was relatively light. I'd say about a 5. You can see nail nick deployment where you can actually put multiple nails on there. Really great looking clip point blade here, and same graphic that we saw in the front of that box with that 1994 2024 over here. Both the spellings of Rough Rider with the R and the reversed R here, the 30 in the middle of those two, always hand built and backed for life. If we take a look at that Tang stamp, we have the RR with Rough Rider on there, and flipping over to the back we have an etch with the steel 440A and that model number, model designation, if that's showing up, hopefully it is, RR2648 on the Stockman. It's going to be 2647 on the Trapper, and we'll see that when we get that one opened up. And then China underneath. Of course, these are made in China, but love the clip point blade on this. In terms of length, I think this one's right about 6 inches, but that's the overall length. If we're taking a look at just the cutting edge, we're looking at about 5 1/4. So pretty significant size tang on that big old blade. Great half stop on these as well. So you can see it snaps into that half stop. Nice snap into the close as well. You may have heard a little bit of that rubbing as it closes though, because it hits it every single time, and not something you can kind of just push off to the side. It's kind of consistently sitting there. So on to our secondary blade, which has the nail nick on the opposite side. We're going to get that sheep's foot blade open, and again you have sort of a nail nick that you can put 2 fingers, and you kind of need to put 2 fingers to pull that one. The pull on this one feels just a hair heavier. It's not significantly heavier. If the other one's a 4 to 5, this one's maybe a 5 1/4 or so. Not very heavy at all, but it is a little bit more difficult to access, also a little bit shorter, so it feels a little bit heavier than the other. But let's get that one open. Have a half stop on all of the blades, which is great because you really don't want these to close on you. And this one has a different graphic etched on that blade. Still has the same wording, always hand built and backed for life, but now we have that cowboy riding the horse and some grass, and no stamp on this blade. But if we flip over to the tang on the pal side, we do get another stamp with the Rough Rider shield, with the Rough Rider spelling with the I instead of the Y. And so I thought that was really cool. We have that 30 on there, so this isn't a classic stamp or logo, although it may be an adaptation of one, so maybe that's an old one that they use just without the 30, but we do have the 30 on this one now. Now in terms of blade length on this one, we're looking at about 4 1/4 inches, but with a cutting edge of about 3 3/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit less than that, 3.6 inches or so on there. So let's get that one closed up. Also worth noting, again, full 2-hand grip, so 8 fingers, 2 thumbs on that with room to spare, and so just super cool for a slip joint. Last but not least, we flip over, and instead of our typical, I guess, pen blade, we do get a spade blade here. And so this one has the horseshoe Rough Rider tested sharp, again the old school spelling, so really nice touch there. About the same pull on this one, probably about 5 1/4, a little bit heavier than our clip point on both the secondary and tertiary blades, but we have that horseshoe with the test sharp on there. Same nail nick pull, again 2-3 nails, no problem. And another etching over here, Rough Rider with both spellings and that horseshoe in the middle. And so let's get this one closed up. We'll move over to our Trapper. I was trying to keep this one somewhat short since it's just kind of a first look at these, but we're getting a little bit up there in length. Now again, same fit and finish on this one, everything's great, 382 pinched and fluted bolsters, great kind of level pins, shield, everything's completely flush. The only thing worth noting on the exterior of this one is that we can see that pin a little bit on that nickel silver bolster, so a little bit of that pin is present, but overall really great fit and finish. Now you can see these ones are both favoring the pile side a little bit. If we just look down the center, you can see both blades are slightly off skew, not causing any rub or anything significant on these ones. The spade blade back here does move around quite a bit in there. You can kind of hear it bounce a little bit. If I'm not talking, maybe it'll hear. Maybe not, but you can kind of hear it bouncing in there. This one does have a heavier pull, and it's very intimidating, honestly, to close the clip point blade especially. And so let's actually start with the spade blade here in the back on this one. We'll go work our way backwards on here. And these blades are longer. The pull's heavier on both of them. This one's probably a good 6 to a 6 1/4. Not quite as heavy as our clip point, but same thing on here. You see that tested sharp horseshoe stamp on the tang, the same graphic we saw on the spade blade on the other one, the Rough Ryder, with the 2 spellings and tested sharp. Nothing on the pile side of this one. Now blade on here is a little bit longer than any of the blades that we saw on our Stockman. So turning this around, you can see that we're looking at about maybe 6.5 inches in the length there. As far as our cutting edge goes though, we're about a hair over maybe 5.5 inches with that tang and that sharpening choil. So we are getting a little bit larger. This one at its fully deployed length gets up to about 14.25 inches. Again, we do have that half stop on here, and then we have our clip point as well. So let's get this one deployed. Really nice clip point. Again, identical to the one that we saw on the other one, so not going to go over this one in too much detail. The only difference we see is on that pile side etching with the RR2647. Now I did mention this one's a little bit intimidating to close because it requires quite a bit of effort. You want to make sure your fingers are out of there, but once you get out of there it's no problem, but you just hear that smack. It's heavier. This is probably the heaviest pull of any of the blades at about a 7 or so, maybe 6.75, but a little bit heavier, so you require a decent bit more effort, and if your hands are in the way when that closes, definitely going to be a bad day. But so far I haven't had any issues. My wife had a very hard time closing this one where she didn't with the Stockman, and so definitely wanted to point that out because she felt like she just couldn't get a grip on it to close it because that spring was so heavy. But still a very cool piece. I definitely want to get some sort of display made for these, maybe make one myself, I don't know. And also maybe considering a slip. I think I already mentioned that. We'll take a quick look at that box again, same logo there, the old logos. Just a very cool presentation for $30. I couldn't pass these up. I think they're very cool, and once they sell out, they're definitely going to be something that I think is pretty sought after because there's not a lot out there like this with just kind of massive, absurd proportions, and I find that to be pretty fun. Let me know what you think of these though down in the comments if you plan on picking one up, which one or both, and really anything else you want to comment. Again, I'll make sure to leave links in the description. Did want to get this video out while they were still available in case people weren't aware of them. Hopefully you don't miss out on them if you're seeing this way in the future. But thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, joining the channel as a member. All help the channel out a ton. And as always, hope you have a great one. Take care.